you doing? It's your boy BrogiNaric back again with another episode of TV Aftermath, the series where I review different streaming shows. And in this episode, I'm really giving my spoiler review of The Hunters, Season 1. And if you don't want spoilers, check out the non-spoiler review on my Instagram page, on the IGTV. The link is in the description. And before we get into this review, I'm going to give you my grade of The Hunters. As a grade for The Hunters, I would give The Hunters Season 1 a B plus or 8.5 out of 10. Really good show, solid attempt. Alright, and that was my grade for Hunters Season 1, the new Amazon Prime series. And I really enjoyed this series. There was a lot of things to like about this series. And it exceeded my it exceeded my expectations because I was interested when I heard that Jordan Peele was producing this, and this because I really like the recent movies he's been making, Get Out and Us. So I wanted to see how this was going. Al Pacino being involved, I was like, all right, they're really trying to do something here. The concept of a group of diverse people hunting down Nazis in the 70s. That sounded interesting to me. This is kind of reminded me a little bit of Inglorious Bastards, and that's one of the things this show did that I was not expecting was how it kind of had a Tarantino-ish vibe to it. Like they were definitely trying to go down that path. There's moments with some of those weird sequences that pop up, those little fourth wall breaking jokes that pop up that seem very Tarantino-ish, even down to the point where there's the scene where they introduce the hunters and it's playing the Dick Dale guitar. It's got that music kind of going on, and sort of blaxploitation-ish type font popping up, which works because it is the 70s, so that didn't seem too out of place. And but it was kind of a shock when you see the first episode, and it jumps to the second and episodes after that, but those scenes start popping up, and it was kind of jarring to me because I was like, this doesn't really seem like the same show. So if you don't know what Hunters is about, here's a quick synopsis. It's set in 1977, and it focuses on this young Jewish kid named Jonah who lives in Brooklyn, New York. His grandmother is murdered, which he thinks is a robbery. He comes into contact with this rich old Jewish guy named Mayor Offerman, played by Al Pacino, who kind of slowly lets him know, and Jonah discovers that he's leading this group of people who are hunting down Nazis who are hiding out in America. Basically, and we discovered the conspiracy of what happened to the Nazis after World War II. And while that's going on, there's an FBI agent who kind of gets drawn into this, and then she's also trying to discover this conspiracy, whether it's true or not, but also trying to stop the hunters from killing people because, killing people is bad, even if they're Nazis, which, okay. So that's the synopsis, the scenario of this series. And as a whole, I really enjoyed it. I'm not too familiar with Logan Lerman as an actor. I've seen him in a few things, but he did really well in this show. I wasn't blown away by him, but he did really well. I liked most of the stuff he did. But some of the things with Jonah's character kind of bugged me. One of the things in particular was that scene where he had the chance to kill the bad guy, Travis, and then the FBI agent talked him out of doing that. That really annoyed the shit out of me. I hated that. That annoyed me so hard. So Millie Morris is played by Shakira Hilton, and you might know her from Grey's Anatomy. First time I've seen her, and she plays a black female FBI agent in the 70s who is secretly a lesbian. So she checks all the boxes for someone that Nazis would not like. And she plays the role of the character who, and these characters annoy me. Especially as I've gotten a little older, these characters annoy me to no end. She plays the character of someone who works within the system, finds out that the system is corrupt, even though she kind of knows the system is not that great. Finds out that the system is corrupt, knows that there's another group trying to correct the corruption, but for some reason thinks she can correct the corruption within the system. Characters like that annoy me, and there are moments where she annoys me, where she thinks, well, if I tell the FBI, they're going to believe me, even though they give me zero respect as a woman, especially a black woman, but they're going to believe me about this. And then she's surprised when the boss tells her, to do the illegal thing to get the warrant, and then realizes when that comes back in her face, she's so shocked. I'm like, come on, you should have seen that coming. So the moment where she talks Jonah to not kill the bad guy Travis really annoyed me because he has done so much evil stuff and he killed two of my favorite characters in the show. So when that happened, I was disappointed. And I agree with Pacino's character when he was like, you failed. Like you should have killed him. You had the moment. You should have taken him out." And then they look like even bigger idiots later on when he's locked up and he's like, "Hey, thanks for not having them kill me because one day I'm gonna get out because I'm white and I'm gonna show up and kill you and your girlfriend, and you're gonna be standing. No, I'm gonna kill your girlfriend, and then I'm gonna go kill you, and you're gonna be thinking, man, I really should have let that kid kill him." And I'm like, yes, this guy is evil. You gotta put him down. So that happens. That's one of the things that bugged me within the series. One of the things I really did like was the humor when they have those crazy fourth wall breaking sequences. Those were pretty good. A lot of those were really funny. That first one they did when it's like the girl's bat mitzvah and she's introducing the different characters. That was kind of interesting. I really like the one with what was it, Ronnie Flash, Josh Randor's character, who's like probably my second or third favorite character in this series. He's this washed up actor that's brought into the team, kind of like the face from A Team. And there's a moment where him and this little girl are running down the ways to spot a Nazi, and he's like, if you see a neighbor, you wave to him, and then he waves back at you at a 40-degree angle. He's probably a Nazi, and then he asks the little girl, "What's rule number 2?" And she's like, "White people." And he's like, "That's a good answer." There was one where they were talking about Huntsville, Alabama. It was like an infomercial for Huntsville, Alabama, which has the one of the space center. I can't remember. It's one of the space center buildings, but it's like filled with Nazis. And the joke was like Huntsville, Alabama is secretly filled with a bunch of Nazis. And come on down to Huntsville, Alabama. It's great. That one was hilarious. Then there's one towards the end where it's a game show, like a '70s game show, and it's talking about why does the game show is why does everyone hate the Jews, and then like the answers are all these different. It's all the same tropes and things you hear about why people hate Jews. It's like, oh, they killed Jesus and they control the media. It's like all those different things. It gets kind of dark towards the end of that. It's kind of it's very biting humor, but those sequences were really cool. Some of them were annoying. There was one that I didn't like and I thought was weird. It was an episode. It was one of the early episodes where Jonah is hanging back with his friends, which his friends, all the side stuff with his friends, I realize is not that good. He has these three friends. One is it's a black kid and a big fat white kid. I think the black kid was named Cheeks, which is short for Booty Cheeks. And then there's the big kid whose name is Booty, whose nickname was Booty, which was short for Booty Hole. So that's the humor we have in this show. That's like I said, that's the stuff that doesn't work. But anyway, he's hanging with them. They're on Coney Island, and they smoke this big joint. This is after his grandmother has died, and they smoke the joint. And then there, out of nowhere, there's this dance sequence with them on the boardwalk dancing to "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees, and like people in the background dancing with him. And he's like high. This is like him imagining this high. And while all this weird dance sequence is going on, there's the image of his young grandmother in her Holocaust prison outfit looking at him like, "You idiot." And it's just like, and he stops and feels her presence, and it's like, it's so weird. That's one of the things about this show. It has these crazy tonal shifts where it can be humorous and then it can be very dark and depressing, where it's like, oh, here's some goofy humor, but then here's a sad story about some people dying in the Holocaust, and it jumps around when like certain characters tell their stories about what happened to them in the Holocaust. Throughout the series, Pacino's character Offerman is telling Jonah all these different stories that he's heard about people like that have lived during the Holocaust. The stories about him and his grandmother, because him and the grandmother were prisoners together, and they through their time in the prison, they kind of grew to love each other. Like he had saved her when they were getting rounded up after like her parents were shot, and then she was about to get shot, but he swooped in and moved her along. and they had this budding relationship during the prison. And then there's other stories that these focuses on. There was one story that focused on this couple that, well, not they weren't a couple, but or maybe they got separated, and then they eventually got back together. He was an engineer, she was a seamstress, and so he devised a way for them to escape, and they got caught. He ended up getting shot, but she ended up escaping, and that was a sad story. Then there was all these crazy stories that happened. There's the one that happened with Mindy and Murray. Mindy and Murray, played by Saul Revenik and Carol Kane. They're my two favorite characters in this series. They're this old married couple, old Jewish married couple who were thrown. They survived Holocaust survivors, and they went through this tragic event where their firstborn son, their young son, got killed by an SS soldier when they were being separated. The father didn't let go of the son, and the German soldier, kept telling him the son has to go with the women and children, but he was like, no, I'm not gonna let him go. So they separated him, and after they separated him, the soldier just shot the son. So that's like their horror that they share, and they have a daughter, and she's about to get married, so they're very protective of her. Various moments where it gets very serious, but then it can get also wacky and crazy. One of the characters that brings up a lot of the humor is Ronnie Flash, who is like I said, the actor. And some people might find him annoying. He is obnoxious, but I started to like him as the show went on and on. But he's always dropping jokes, always dropping puns. It can kind of get annoying, but I found it endearing as the show went on. Okay, so Sister Harriet, she's an interesting character. Sister Harriet, played by Kate Mulvaney, who I'm pretty sure I've never seen act before, but she was really good in this. She's a spy. She's a former MI6 agent and a nun. And as the show goes on, there's these moments where you realize, well, it kind of leads you to think maybe she's a Nazi in disguise, because she starts speaking German. Because we've seen her speak with a British accent, then she starts speaking German, and it's like, is she a Nazi? Then there's a moment where she breaks ranks and she starts killing all these Nazis, and then she kills like these various Nazis within the crowd, but she saves one and runs off with him, and then the team is kind of like, what was that about? Like, and specifically one of the members, Joe, is like, I think she's a traitor. But then we find out she ran off with the Nazi because she was trying to get more information from him, and then she saves him and brings him back to Mindy and Murray, because then we find out that that specific Nazi was the guy that killed their son. So then for some time after that, he's locked in their basement, and they're struggling with what they're going to do to get their revenge, because they've thought for nothing for like, what, 30 or so years, what we're going to do to this man when or if we find him. And then they have him, and they're freaking out. They don't know what to do with him. So you're led to believe that maybe she's not a bad guy, or she's not a double agent. But then when you get towards the end, she's back on the phone talking to this woman who's speaking with a British accent. I believe it was British. Could have been Russian. I don't know. But you hear that she's using this team to do what her superiors want her to do. And I don't know if that's still MI6, or maybe she's KGB working with the Russians, or maybe, because we've only seen her when we see her talking about her life, and the women we hear her talking, there's only women, so maybe she's part of some radical feminist group. I don't know, but there's something going on with her. I'm guessing KGB. But we also find out that actually no, she is a Holocaust, well, not a Holocaust survivor. She comes from a Jewish background, and her parents were rich enough to get her out of Germany before the Nazi occupation got really bad, and she got sent off to this Catholic church where she was raised in the Catholic faith and grew up to be a nun, and then somehow became a spy. So that's like her little side story. She's a very interesting character. I liked her. So another member of the team, you have Roxy Jones, played by Tiffany Boone, who is the Black Power activist. She's a good character. She doesn't do a whole lot in this series, but I liked her character. She's a mom. She's not necessarily a single mom, because the dad is still in the picture, but they're separated. And she and Joe kind of have this kind of will they want they thing going on, but it's not really explored that well. But they do care for each other, type of thing. And there's a moment where they're doing a mission, which was great, when they have this woman who's a Nazi. She was like worked in the propaganda wing. She helped direct the movies and stuff like that. And they got her tied up, and they're force feeding her horse shit, trying to get her to confess that she is who she is, and they're literally like shoving horse shit in this woman's mouth. It's great. It's a great scene, and the moment when after she starts snapping on him and starts like, oh, talking to one guy saying nobody likes you, you're lonely, and she's talking to her like, oh, they're just using you because you're black, and then she starts talking to Offerman, and she's like, you're the worst of them all because you're a liar, you're not even who you say you are. Like she's speaking in German, like you're a liar, you're a deceiver, and he just shoots her, and they're like, whoa, like that's not really the process of how we do things. But anyway, after that, they're leaving, and Offerman's Al Pacino's car explodes. Roxy is caught in the explosion. Well, she's not close, but she's close enough to the explosion, and it knocks her out. And that's the moment where she's like, you know what, I'm done with this. And she kind of disappears for a while. Like she doesn't come back really to like maybe the last two episodes when she comes back to the team because she's like, you know what, I'm just gonna hang with just stay with my daughter. I'm not really meant for all of this. But she does eventually comes back once there's an explosion that in New York City, which leads to a blackout. And this is also loosely based on the actual blackout that happened in New York in 1977. So I like how they take certain real world things and blend them together. And that's later in the series where the Nazis cause this big distraction in New York, so they can the team find out that the Nazis are gonna unleash this biological weapon. Then they discover it's going to be released in food, and it's going to target poor income areas because the Nazis and they're starting to work on the Fourth Reich, and they run this food company, and they're working on this new sweetener to distribute to the people. And two of your main villains in the series are Travis, played by Greg Austin, and Biff Simpson, played by Dylan Baker. And Travis is this young American who's a Nazi sympathizer. He wants to be in. He's all in on the Fourth Reich, and he's like slowly working his way up to be accepted because he's not accepted that much because he is American, but over time he proves his loyalty. He kills people, he threatens people, and he also kills some of the guys within the group to take them out so he can move up in the rankings. And he gets the attention of the Colonel, who's like the main focus in this series. The Colonel is played by Lena Olin, and she's the one who we see running the Fourth Reich. And once she realizes how dedicated Travis is, she like officially brings him into the fold. And she was good. I'm not familiar with that actress, but she does well. And he's the opposite of Biff Simpson, who is a former SS officer, and he's infiltrated himself into the Carter administration, and he's drunk on power. He messes up in the beginning. He throws a cookout, and this guy brings his wife, and his wife is a Holocaust survivor, and she recognizes him and freaks out. And so then he retaliates, and he just kills everybody at the party. And then that's when he calls Travis in to clean up his mess. And he's like, "Oh yeah, some black guy killed my family and tried to kill me," and it works. He's like, "Yeah, I'll just say a black guy did it. It'll work." Like America, tries to act like it's this beacon of tolerance, and it's really not. And he does that a couple of times. But anyway, he's working in the Carter administration, and he's supposed to be trying to get this sanction for South America to go play so they can be trade between America and South America. But then when he starts to realize that he's being left out of the Fourth Reich's plan just a little bit, he immediately overreacts, and he's like, you know what? Let's not have them pass that bill. And he tries to jam up the Fourth Reich in order for them to have to come back to him, which ends up biting him in the ass because by doing that, he's basically turned on the team. So then the team is trying to kill him. And once he realizes how real it is, once his mother-in-law, he comes home and his mother-in-law is dead, and then he fights off the assassin that's trying to kill him. He's now on the run, and he's got to figure out a way to get out of America. So by the end, he leaves and runs to Russia. I thought that was very interesting because I thought he was going to be dead. But I'm kind of glad he's not dead because I like that character, I like that actor, and I want to see him stick around. Another good scene is when Murray is on the train trying to defuse the bomb that Travis left, and it doesn't work. And he has that moment where he looks off and he sees the ghost of his son, and his son's like, "Come on, Dad, it's time to go." And then he walks away with the son, and then explosion. Great stuff. There's some great moments like that. There's another great moment when Mindy, played by Carol Kane, is at the house after Murray's funeral, and she's there by herself, and she's talking, and she's like, "Oh, who's gonna do this? Who's gonna do that? Because you always did this." And then he's sitting there talking back to her. He's like, "It's gonna be okay," and she's basically talking to his ghost. And then he's like, "Hey, do you want to go see our son?" And then they leave, and they walk through a door, and they in this beautiful garden, and their little son is there painting, and she's having this full-on conversation with them. And I'm like, is she dead? But she's not dead. She's just imagining all of this. And then Murray's like, "All right, you can't stay here. You got to go back." So that was a very touching scene, and very kind of like when the show kind of goes off in its own direction where it gets fantastical to a degree. But I liked it. It was a very beautiful moment. So now I'm going to get into the big thing that happens towards the end, the big revelation that happens, the two big revelations that might hurt the show, or it might. I thought it worked. Both of them I thought worked in the end. Mayor Offerman is played by Al Pacino. He's the one who funds the group, but over time we find out that it's actually Jonah's grandmother who started the group. And the group, one of the things I like is this group is a very new group. It's not like a group that's been secretly operating for 10 or 15 years. It's only been operating for like a year, and this is their second year. And it was started because Jonah's grandmother was out in the streets at the market and recognized a Nazi soldier at the shop, and she goes to Mayor and it's like, "Hey, I saw this guy that was at the camps with us. We should do something about it." And then they start investigating, and then Mayor goes, especially once Ruth is killed, then that's when he's got the team to be like, "All right, yeah, we're going to straight up kill these guys." Well, I mean that was already the plan, but I don't think Ruth knew about that part of it. But yeah, they're gonna take these guys out. So over time, we find out when Ruth and Mayor were in the camps together, and they had their secret relationship going on because they were separated. Men and women were separated. There was this Nazi doctor, Nazi surgeon. Well, yeah, doctor surgeon called nickname was the Wolf, who also had a crush on Ruth, and he would study her. He would do everything he could to get to know her, and then he made his move to try to get her to get closer to him to be his secretary. She turns him down, and once he realizes she has a crush on Offerman, he does everything he can to torture and abuse Offerman in order to get him to break, and then in some way try to get Ruth to fall for him. There's a moment where he sneaks him out, and he takes him into his doctor's office, and he's like threatens him and stabs him and cuts him up and everything. He gets this scratch on his chest, which is why he's called the Wolf. That didn't work. Then there's a moment where he took Offerman into the woods, took both of them into the woods. Well, he took him into the woods, gave him a gun, and had Ruth off to the side, and he was like, put another Holocaust prisoner in front of him, and he's like, "Kill this man, or I kill her." And she's telling him to shoot her, and he doesn't. He shoots the innocent guy, and then it was like, "Oh, that's messed up." But then he does it again, and then again, and again, and then we find out he killed 12 guys in order to save Ruth's life. That's what the Wolf forced him to do, and so over time he's telling Jonah all these stories. Eventually, Jonah discovers that Offerman is his grandfather because he never knew he knew his actual grandfather, who was grandfather was an American soldier that saved Ruth from the camp. Well, when the soldiers came in and they changed the refugee camp, he was one of the soldiers that was there at the camp, and then they got together because Offerman disappeared, and we also discovered he disappeared for like 30 years. Then we just find out when she went to him about the Nazi and at the market. That was their first time seeing each other in 30 years because she grew up poor, and then their daughter died, and then she was raising the grandson, and then they come back together, and he's this millionaire, and which was weird because I'm like, wait, if she was gone, why didn't he ever come back to help her out? So Jonah's feeling a certain way about like, why did you leave my grandmother and da da da. So over time, Jonah is trying to Mayor is trying to get Jonah to be more aggressive, to be more tough. You get to really get to your roots. Like the Jewish thing is much deeper than just the little bits. There's a lot of heritage and a lot of stories and stuff. You really got to get into this. And he like I said, when he didn't kill Travis, that kind of let Mayor was like, okay, you're really not built for this. So that gets Jonah to really investigate and track down the wolf because he's been trying to find the wolf. So Jonah discovers that the grandmother was trying to find him and actually found him, and he was this surgeon hiding out at this plastic surgery place. Jonah goes to see him and to get some stick. He had a cut to get some stitches removed, and the doctor looks at the stitches and he's like, "Oh, these stitches are very nice. Whoever did this was an expert," and he heals it for him. And he's like, "Were you in Germany?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm German." He's like, "Were you during the war?" And he's like, "Yeah, I lived during the war." And da da da. So he ends up kidnapping this surgeon and takes him back to Pacino. And Pacino's been he was in a car crash earlier where he thought he killed he kills the colonel. He go off the bridge and he survives, but she's dead. Okay, so he's been recovering, and Jonah's like, "Hey, I got the wolf here. Here he is," and he's tied up. So not Jonah, Mayor goes there and he's talking to him. He's like, "I've been looking for you, and I finally get my chance to kill you." And the guy's screaming. He's like, "No, no." And so he goes up behind him. He takes a knife and stabs him in like the right where his neck and his head connects, and kills the guy. And then Jonah's kind of like, "Wait a second, that's not what I thought was going to happen," because there was this whole. Eventually I realized this going back and watching certain episodes because it's very subtle if you're not paying attention. But Mindy and Mary mentions that there's this prayer, this is Jewish prayer that they want to say when they find the Nazi that killed their son. They're going to say to him as sort of like a merciful type thing, and then kills him. And the grandmother said that it was a prayer. It was the same prayer that the father, that not the father, that Mayor said he was going to say whenever he got his chance to kill the wolf. If he got a chance to kill the wolf, he would take revenge on him. He would say this prayer and then kill him. So when Jonah sees Mayor kill the wolf, but he doesn't say the prayer, he's like, "Wait a second, that's weird. You didn't say the prayer." And Offerman's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You were supposed to say the prayer, but you didn't say the prayer." And he's like, "I'm old. I kind of forgot." And then Jonah's like, "Wait a second, that don't sound right." So then he's starting to pull all these because he's got pattern recognition powers. He's called Codebreaker, and he's starting to remember all these different patterns, the different information on the wolf, and like how his information disappeared and then it reappeared and then it kind of fell off, and then he starts to realize that the Offerman, this Offerman is not who he says he is, and then he realizes that he's actually the wolf in disguise. So and this is a moment where it's kind of like, wait, what? So he explains when the grandmother was explaining. I think she was talking to him about how the grandfather, when they were in the refugee camp, he couldn't sleep. He was having bad night. Or maybe Offerman was explaining it. He was having bad nightmares because the wolf had corrupted him. He couldn't sleep, and so one day when the actual wolf was the Russians were coming in and he had to escape. So he took the real Offerman, dragged him away from the camp, killed him, stole his information, stole his papers, and then left. So then he hid out in Berlin for a couple of years, posing as Offerman. But there was a woman who recognized him and started freaking out. So he realized, okay, just taking his name is not going to cut it. So he went to a German surgeon to get plastic surgery. The German surgeon is the guy that Jonah found, and they swapped. He took his information, and then the real wolf took Offerman's information, got plastic surgery to make him look like Offerman. And that was also the reason why that's why he disappeared on the grandmother for 30 years, because he was dead. And then that's why he didn't bother to contact her, because he's a different person. Even though he loves her, he knows everything about Offerman because he studied him in order to torture him. So him living as a Jewish guy, he got into the culture. He had to learn to read the Torah, all the history. Like, he really got into it. So he was living as a Jewish guy for 30 years. And then it was when Ruth appeared to him, when she saw the guy in the market. That was him seeing her was when he got the spark to be like, you know what, I'm gonna start a group to get revenge on what the Nazis did was wrong. And then like Jonah's like, oh, you can't do that. That's not your story. He's like, well, someone's got to do it. And he's like, but you know, you were a bad guy. He's like, yeah, I was bad, but he's like, but I wasn't like, he's like, I'm not really a Nazi. And then Jonah's like, no, you were a Nazi. You worked with him. He's like, well, you know, I was a surgeon, and they gave me power, and the power corrupted me. You know, he was kind of, you know, bullshitting, BSing his way out of it, but he also was like, look, it is what it is. If you want to kill me, kill me. He's like, I don't want redemption. I don't want recognition. I did what I did. I tried to make it better. It is what it is. You can kill me or not kill me. And then Jonah, I think, yeah, Jonah shoots him, and then Offerman's dead. And it was kind of like, whoa, did not see that coming. And then he tells the team is freaking out. They don't know, you know, they're kind of like, what's going on? And so one of the characters, Joe, he leaves, he gets hit in the street, and he gets kidnapped, and he's taken away. And then the rest of the team are kind of like, okay, once Jonah explains it, they're like, all right, I guess this is what happened. And so then they're like, well, we should try to do something else because they're still out there. We stopped this one plan. And the plan was they were going to release this new chemical that they created called corn syrup in the food, and they had another biological weapon that would combine with the corn syrup, which would then cause a disease and kill people. So once they stopped, they blew up the factory, which was a great episode when they sneak in to stop the factory. All is lost, and you think the colonel is dead, but then we find out at the end she's not dead. She's living down in Argentina with her 5 kids, maybe clones, I don't know. And we find out that they kidnap Joe and they take him to Argentina. They want to do something with Joe. I don't know what it is, but then we also find out that the colonel is actually Ava Brom, who is the real girlfriend of Adolf Hitler in real life. We find out that she is Ava Brom, and we also find out that Hitler is still alive. He's old as shit, but he's still alive, and they got a family in Argentina, and that's how the show ends. And I should have seen that coming. It's not that big of a surprise. Oh, Hitler's still alive. Okay. But I'm not mad at it. I liked how they did the reveal. I want to see where this goes. And also, the hunters are going to move to Europe, or they're going to start doing missions in Europe. And they got to deal with the Nazis, and they also got to deal with the FBI lady, because she's now in charge of an official government Nazi hunting team, although it's still secret because, you know, one of the other real Nazis that are hiding out there. She's now leading her own secret task force to hunt down Nazis officially, and she's got like a senator helping her out. So if they get a second season, it should be interesting to see what they're gonna do. I don't know what new old actor they're gonna bring in to kind of get to bring their gravitas to the series, which is what, you know, Pacino did for this. But I'm interested. I like these characters, and I like to see where they're gonna go with this series. So that's my ramblings about this series. A lot of things I didn't talk about. One scene I didn't talk about, which was really good, was when Mindy, after she has that whole scene where she's talking to the ghost of her husband. The ghost of her husband comes back, and he's like, "Oh yeah, one more thing. Aaron said you should be merciful to the Nazi. Like, don't torture the guy. Just be merciful. You take him out, but be merciful." So Mindy goes in, and she has her gun, and she closes the door, and you hear one gunshot. She just shoots him once, and then after Offerman's dead, she leaves the team. And so the team, like I said, going to Europe, and I want to see where they go with this. Really enjoyed the show. That's my review, my spoiler review of Hunters Season 1. If you like this video, hit the like button, share it, subscribe to the channel, and check out other videos on this channel. We're still growing. Got some good content coming up in the next couple of weeks. March should be very interesting. There's a lot of movies coming out, some good TV shows, and some other side videos I'm working on too. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Peace.